I hope the audience had a really good time and are going to implement it soon. Of course, I really understood something new from this session, right? How about the audience? Can I have a yes? Okay. So, moving ahead, it reminds me to tell you all something. As this world is full of precious gems, you might see some of them here. If you turn around, you might see them. So, it's time to have the most awaited suspense session. Well, apparently, I'm also very curious on what exactly is this topic named as Let's Return Nothing. So any ideas what it can be from the audience? Any guesses? Okay, no worries. So this energy can't keep me calm right now, okay? So, let's call upon Akansha and Abhishek, who are our very own organizers for this Flutter Conf India, to reveal what exactly this is about. But wait, do you know who are these? So, starting with Abhishek, he is a senior software engineer from Somnio and a GDE expert. And he is also a content creator and he writes blogs on Medium and YouTube. Next, we have Akansha, who is a software engineer from Maersk and was also a Google developer lead. So, are we all excited? Okay. Now, apparently, try to remain calm and return nothing. So, calling upon Akansha and Abhishek to steal this mic from here.
So, hello folks. How is the excitement? How is the Josh? Well, would anyone from the audience like to guess our mysterious topic for the day? What we are doing here and what are we trying to do from Let's Return Nothing? Shh, keep calm and return nothing. So, I am Akansha Jain, working as a software engineering intern at AP Moller Maersk. I would like to thank personally Maersk for sponsoring us today, and we also have Maersk's booth, so don't forget to check that out. They do have amazing swags that you don't want to miss, so don't forget to check that out.
I am Abhishek Doshi. I'm a Google developer expert for Dart, Flutter and Firebase. Currently, I'm working as senior Flutter engineer at Somnio Software, and we both, as mentioned, are the organizers for this Flutter Conf India.
So, have you ever encountered a problem where you don't want to return anything, but you were forced to return a container or a sized box? So, for example, here in the code snippet, we just wanted to show a red container when month is 5, that is May. But we were forced to return a container here, right? Or maybe in block or any other state management where you ended up returning container or sized box. Well, we saw the problem, but what's the exact issue? What is wrong in returning an empty container? The issue is, even though we create an empty container without any parameters initiated, it still creates an instance in a render object tree. So, now we know the problem. Now let's find a solution for that, and let's hear from Abhishek what's the solution for that.
So, any guesses what would be the solution? Return nothing. Right. Moving forward, how about returning nothing? P.S. Nothing is not a stateless or stateful widget. But you can still use it as a widget. Does anyone have any idea how we can do this? Sorry? Correct. You ruined my talk. Yeah. So, let's see what nothing is. So, let's quickly see how to create a widget which will have its own widget tree and element tree, but no render object tree. Why exactly we are focusing here on render object tree is, whenever we create our widget, render object tree is the most costliest tree to be created or to rebuild it. So it is always like, if you don't really want to add it, it's good to just don't have a render object tree. So you can see the code snippet. This particular code is just simple. It is the same, the problem that we had. We want to show Flutter Conf India if the month is 11th, else we don't want to show anything. Now if I don't return a container, like if I completely remove this else, it shows me error that the body might completely return null. That's which is not allowed. And you can see I have not even added any packages. The pub spec is same as the original one. So we are actually going to be doing this without a package. So the code is pretty simple. Let's first create a nothing.dart, and there would be a class nothing which would extend widget. Not a stateless widget, not a stateful widget. The parent class of stateless and stateful widget, which is the widget, main class. Now it says that it requires one missing override. Let's add that. Let's add the constructor. Now the override says that it needs an element. So the next step would be to create an element. So there would be a class called nothing element. This also requires some overrides. So basically two overrides are required, that is debug, doing, build. So this is basically required, like if you are debugging, would you like to rebuild this thing or not? And we don't want, because we don't want the render object tree. So it just return false. And we can just keep this function as empty. Like it says that when the rebuild is performed, what should be done? So here we are not going to rebuild our widget, so we are just keeping the function empty. And it requires a constructor, that's it. Okay, so our class nothing is ready. Wasn't this simple? Right? And here instead of container, we can just return nothing. So wasn't this something fascinating? So here we didn't use a stateless widget, we didn't use a stateful widget, we didn't use any package, but we optimized our code. As Raj sir said that even reducing 200 milliseconds of latency makes your code very improved. So we can do the same here. Whenever you are using nothing, it will make your code much, much better. But there is one drawback. You can't use nothing with multi-child class. Like you can't use nothing with column, row, stack, list view. And what's the reason behind this? If you actually check the documentation or the implementation of this multi-child widgets, you will see that the children should be acceptable in the multi-child widget, which means that it needs to be a stateless or stateful widget. And if you try this, if you add nothing in column or row, it won't give you any error. But what will happen is, let's suppose that if I have hello, Flutter Conf India, and in between I have added nothing, like text hello, nothing, text Flutter Conf India, nothing. What will happen is, the sequence of displaying would be changed. Like it would be randomly throwing widgets, like maybe it is possible that first you will see Flutter Conf India, then hello, then something else, like that. So it is not recommendable to use nothing with multi-child widgets. We already checked what nothing is. Do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions? Even I personally liked, and now I can keep calm and return nothing.
Yeah, so I hope now you can keep calm. Was this a mysterious talk?
There's a package called nil package.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between this and nil?
It's the same thing. Nil is also the same thing. But it's always said that to add multiple packages in your project is not a good thing. Why? Because our project becomes more and more dependent on a package. Now this is a very small code, right? You can manually add it in your project instead of adding a new package.
Here. What should we do in the case of row or column then?
So in the case of row or column, why would you use nothing? If you don't want to submit, you don't want to return anything, you would not add anything, right? In row or column, if you see, you can actually just use if condition. We don't need else condition.
I was able to see someone who wants to ask any question here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that the importance of nothing is that it won't be in the render object tree.
Yes.
Could you stress a little bit more on that? And also, like, why is it not officially a Flutter widget?
That Flutter team can answer. But what is render object tree? Basically, in Flutter we have three types of trees: widget tree, element tree, and render object tree. For each widget, an element is created, and for each element, a render object is created. But what render object holds is, for each widget, whatever the paint properties are, like size, color, XY coordinates of that widget in the screen, all these are held by render object tree. Now, if we are just returning an empty container, it still initializes the parameters, even though we are not providing them, but it still initializes with the default values, right? For example, if we are just creating a container and we don't give any height to it, so by default it is 0, 0. If we don't give a color, it's transparent. So it still initializes an object in the render object tree. And whenever we want to rebuild that particular widget, like right now, what was the issue? We had entire code snippet in a builder. It means that it is going to be rebuilt. And in this case, container would also be rebuilt, even though you don't need it.
I understand that. What I was trying to ask is, like, for example, if it's not when I use nothing, so I'm saving up memory space and I'm saving, like, for example, 200 milliseconds. So, like, can you stress on it how important it is to use nothing instead of returning an empty container?
Okay, so let's do some maths. What if you have 1,000 containers like this in your application?
That's not really likely though.
There is, because in many state management cases, you only want to specifically return a particular screen or a particular widget based on the state.
But
so at many
not at
times we
one
have
time,
to
right?
return container or size box.
I agree, and there will be like 1,000 places, but
Yeah.
not at one time, right? Like, I'll be returning only one container at a time usually. Even in state management also, like, for example, if I don't want to render anything, there will be one particular case when I'll be returning a container. I could have that code at 1,000 places, but that will only be rendered probably one container at a time, right? So is it really that useful?
Even if it is not rendered, the render object is created.
Yeah.
Render object, what it does is, it is like a postal address of yours. Even though you are not at your home, the postal address is still there.
Correct.
Right? So render object tree, whatever code or whatever widget we write in the code, each widget, stateless or stateful widget, would have a render object tree, even though it is not getting rendered on the screen.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Hi Abhishek.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, like, how is it different from offstage widget? Because there is a widget offstage which acts like it has child in the trees, but then it doesn't paint anything actually. So I think if it is not painting anything, then it is also similar to nothing.
No. As I mentioned, each widget that you create, which is a stateless or stateful widget, a render object tree would be created. Because it's like when you add a widget, it creates a widget tree. Widget tree creates element tree creates render object tree, if you are using stateless or stateful widget. In our code, we blocked our code till element tree only, because we directly extended the element part.
So are you sure, like, in case of offstage, we still have a render object?
Yeah.
Okay, you are sure?
Offstage extends the stateless widget, right? That's the reason.
Okay, cool, thanks.
No problem.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi.
I
So
think
I
someone
wanted to
said,
ask about the performance measurement. Like, have you actually checked if I use size box comparatively to nothing?
Yeah.
Is there any real performance difference that?
Yeah,
even in
so
milliseconds?
when you try the Dart DevTools and in the profile debugging, so in that, if you particularly check for one particular screen, you will see very small difference of milliseconds or even not milliseconds, less than that. But when you comparatively, merge all the screens and all that performance differences, you'll be able to view a larger difference.
Okay.
I think we can just take one last question.
yeah. Hi, I think someone from the audience already said there is a package called Neil.
Yeah.
But I would say I would have to disagree with you that that package is exactly the same thing which you did here.
Yeah,
So-
that's correct. It's the same thing.
So why don't use the package instead? Why you want to basically write this code in every of your project? And Flutter is kind of heavily based on packages, right? It's everything, basically what you do in Flutter is based on packages. So why are you saying no to that package?
Okay, so how many of you agree with me that we should use minimum packages possible? This is the reason. Whenever you, though even it is one line code, even it is one file code, I'm not just talking about this particular package.
So you are saying you want to repeat that code in every project.
Yeah,
So you want to copy that class. So if you are doing multiple projects, you want to copy that particular file in every of them.
Yeah.
And not use package.
because it's just one file. Even when you start, what
So
you
when,
can,
when okay, Flutter engine changes and it kind of changes, then you will have to do change in every of your projects. Do you agree with that?
so if we talk about this particular thing,
Yeah.
it won't change because we are directly contacting the Flutter framework.
Basically, that's why we have packages, right? So that if it changes, we can go to a different version, right?
Right.
So basically, package is something where you are reusing your code, and you are saying no to that. I would have to disagree with that. The point is ki you can use less packages. That's up to you. But using packages not
Yeah,
wrong.
using packages is not abandoned. I'm not saying that you should not use packages, but whenever possible or wherever possible, if you just want a minimal code, then you should write it.
Yeah.
So are you like 110% sure that the code snippet he wrote is the only thing that you'll find in the nil package? You can find every other possible class or multiple different files.
There's only one file. There
So,
is only one file.
just a second, just
So-
a second, just a second. We have only one Dart file. We have multiple native files.
Okay, there is only one file which is a source file and the other is part of it. There
Yes.
are two files and that's it. That's the entire package. So
If
whatever
you properly check the Android, iOS, Windows, Mac and all the folders of that package, it creates all the files for them.
Arey,
So
But
let's suppose that you want to use nil package, but you only want to develop app for an Android.
okay.
Now in that case, the package contains code for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, everything, the native code. Correct?
I'll ask you one more thing. Okay, for example, I'm using a package which have 10 functionality, but when you're going to deliver the Flutter app, would that code will be used or not? The
That
compiler
code
would
won't be
take
used.
away that part of code, which you're not
That is
using,
called tree
basically.
shaking.
Yeah.
But
So
the APK
basically
size will
that is
still be
not used.
increased.
So your point is anyway invalid.
The APK size, if you are using that particular package which has 10 functionalities, and if you just want one functionality, the APK size would increase.
It would not if you're not using that part of code.
Still it would increase.
I would disagree. Why don't we talk after?
Yeah, sure.
We can have a conversation later on.
So we can conclude that it was an interesting topic because we have so many questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Akansha and Abhishek. At last, we have solved the mystery of returning nothing. Hope you have learned something from this and you will apply in your course next time onwards. Moving forward, we have our next speaker. You know him very well. He is the epitome of Flutter knowledge in our community. Majid is currently the head of developer relations at Invertase. Majid is also a GD in Flutter and Dart and a passionate web developer. He has years of experience in developing and architecting complex web and mobile applications. He is an award-winning book author at A-Press and as an instructor in Packet Hub, Udemy, and Pluralsight. He is an experienced Flutter developer and he has also experience in progressing web apps. He is the organizer of several big Nordic conferences and meetups such as Flutter Vikings. Today, we'll be learning about how can we secure our Flutter apps using Top 10. Can we have a round of applause for Majid? The stage is yours.
think I'm going to use my arrow key. Okay, they're showing me some thumbs up, but this light is too bright. I don't see anything. Is it? Can you come there? I don't see you at all. Yeah, there you go.